So I'm here today to speak to the growing concern about sexual violence found on Ontario's post-secondary campuses. And as a government, we believe that no one should have to worry about sexual violence or harassment. And as the Minister of Training, Colleges and Universities, I have a zero-tolerance policy for violent behavior and expect the same from all post-secondary education institutions. I am certain that we can all agree that post-secondary students should be able to move freely about campus without fear, and that we can all agree there are far too many incidents of sexual harassment and violence at our post-secondary institutions. And that is something that we must address. This is a very, very important issue. Last year, more than 160,000 students at colleges, universities, and private career colleges across the province participated in a voluntary survey to gather their opinions concerning their experiences and views around sexual violence. And so we thank all those students who participated in the Student Voices on Sexual Violence survey and recognize the strength and bravery that it takes for individuals who have been impacted by sexual violence to respond to a survey about those experiences. And the results we are sharing today will provide post-secondary institutions with important information to inform their sexual violence response and prevention efforts, as well as to help protect students in the future. The safety of students is of great importance to me, as is the privacy of the individuals who participated in this survey. Great effort has gone into protecting the privacy of participants before the release of these results. The Student Voices on Sexual Violence survey focused on 5 themes: student perception of consent, student knowledge of sexual violence supports, services, and reporting procedures, and student experiences of sexual violence, including those related to harassment, stalking, and non-consensual sexual experiences. Student satisfaction with institution responses to sexual violence, and behaviors of bystanders. The results of the survey are heartbreaking and disturbing. Of the over 116,000 university students who completed the survey, approximately 63% disclosed at least one form of sexual harassment experience since the beginning of the academic year. Over 42,000 college students compiled the survey, and approximately 50% of those students disclosed at least one form of sexual harassment experience in that same time frame. And in both sectors, among those students who told someone at their institution about an unwanted sexual experience, only 60% of responses across a range of questions indicated satisfaction with the institutional response. This is not acceptable. We all need to do better. The results of the survey released today provide a snapshot in time of the self-reported experiences of students. We are sharing these results because we feel we have a responsibility to provide this information to institutions and the public, so post-secondary education institutions are well positioned to address sexual violence experienced by their students. We have a responsibility to students, their families, and communities to make sure that they are comfortable on campus, at campus events, and in their classrooms. We want students and parents to know there are resources and supports available, and that concerns will be listened to and addressed accordingly. We also have a responsibility to protect the privacy of the survey's participants. The ministry is committed to releasing further information only once appropriate privacy protections are in place. And for that reason, we are engaging with Ontario's Information and Privacy Commissioner on the release of additional survey results. I am committed to holding any further results of the survey until the privacy of all students can be protected. Our government takes the health and well-being of our students very seriously. The people of Ontario and their government have zero tolerance for sexual assault, harassment, or any other form of violence in our communities, including our campuses. And that's why we are taking immediate action to help address the issue of sexual violence at Ontario's post-secondary institutions. First, we are doubling the investment in the Women's Campus Safety Grant to $6 million. This grant supports initiatives such as safety training for staff, student leaders, and volunteers. The grant also helps with the installation of security cameras, lighting, safety apps, and emergency notification systems so students can travel freely on campus and to their homes. Further supports funded by the grant include sexual violence and assault prevention workshops and safety workshops. Second, our government proclaimed into force a provision of the Ministry of Training Colleges and Universities Act requiring all publicly assisted post-secondary institutions to annually report incidents of sexual violence. This provision, previously unproclaimed, requires every publicly assisted college and university to report annually to their Board of Governors the number of incidents of sexual violence reported by students, how they are supporting students who have experienced sexual violence, and how they are addressing the incidents. Students need to know that when they report concerns or incidents of sexual violence, that the institutions are taking the issue seriously. No one should be afraid of coming forward for help. Third, we are requiring each publicly funded college and university in Ontario to create a task force devoted to tackling sexual violence on campus. The task forces should be in place by September 2019 and represent the diversity of each institution's student population, as well as faculty and administration. For too long, the voices of rural students, northern students, or underrepresented student populations have been ignored. We anticipate that these task forces will take this into consideration. Each task force will provide an independent report on the effectiveness of current programs and services to combat sexual violence on their respective campuses. The task forces will also be asked to provide recommendations on additional steps that each institution should take to ensure a safe environment for all. These reports, once completed, will be provided to both the Board of Governors on each respective campus, as well as to my ministry. As a necessary first step, we will also be expecting every publicly assisted college and university in Ontario to review their sexual violence policies by September 2019, ensuring that they are up to date and reflect information brought forward by students in this survey. It is the responsibility of all colleges and universities in Ontario to have strong policies in place that address sexual violence for the safety of everyone on campus. So I would like to acknowledge institutions who are trying to support their students and end sexual violence on campus. And I know there are already services and supports in place to ensure that students are safe. We need to do better. The results released today show that hard work needs to be done to ensure this serious issue is properly addressed at all of our publicly assisted institutions. We know that a healthy campus environment is crucial to student success. And our expectation is that post-secondary institutions will do everything in their power to combat sexual violence. The safety and well-being of everyone on our university and college campuses is one of our most important priorities. And together, we will work with students and our post-secondary education partners to address sexual violence affecting students and work towards creating a safe environment, free from sexual violence for all students. Thank you. Appreciate your time today.
Minister, how big of a problem is this in Ontario compared to some other provinces? And I'm wondering if you can touch on what you think some of the core issues are.
Well, this is an interesting survey. It is one of the largest ever done in Canada. There are 10 million units of data in this. And so we are concerned that we need to hear from the students. As I said, the results are heartbreaking. So we're listening to students and making sure that their voices are heard. I can't speak for other provinces, but I am concerned and aware that this is a major issue. It appears to be fairly pervasive.
And the root causes, have you figured out?
The survey did not go into the root causes. There were no questions to my knowledge of that. If you're interested in more of the survey details, my staff can get that for you. But I'm not going to speculate on that. That's not what the survey was about. It was about sexual violence on campus. But
Student groups have been asking the government to set minimum standards for sexual violence services. I don't see that in here. Is that something you considered, and why or why not?
Well, looking at the task forces and requiring each college and university institution to set up that task force, we believe that that is a very important work that will be done, and we'll be looking for that to hear back from them. That's something that the institutions will be tasked to do.
Do you not want consistency, though, from institution to institution?
Well, I think each institution is maybe unique, just as each participant is unique. And we value the input that students have given in this survey. But we also believe that the institutions, some of them have already come out with their updated policies. So there is respect for the institutions, and I'm happy, and our ministry is happy to work with them.
Minister, sorry, two questions here, if I can. Sorry for just a moment. You mentioned $6 million, or a doubling of an investment, total $6 million. Is that, so it would have been 3 before, doubled to 6, divided amongst all the schools in the province?
2018-19, the amount was $3 million. We're doubling that. We feel there's an imperative to take immediate action, and so this is part of our immediate response to this.
Here, you mentioned the safety of students is, of course, your top priority.
Yes.
Not sure if you saw some of our coverage yesterday at the University of Toronto, where there were protests by students because their concerns are lack of mental health services or the availability of it in terms of the speed of accessing counseling. There have been 3 suicides at the school, most recently over the weekend, and the school says to us today that they do have resources in place, but frankly have not answered our questions as to how quickly now can students get access to mental health services? Have you had conversations with the school, and what can be done about this?
First, I want to acknowledge the loss of that individual, and my heart breaks for the family. Any one situation of sexual violence on campus is one too many, and we know that there are mental health ramifications from that. So it speaks to the imperative to address this, and that our government is taking immediate action on this, to create the task force, to have the institutions review their policies, to double the funding that we're providing for the Women's Campus Safety Grant, and looking at ways that we can improve and take action immediately. We are very concerned about the mental health on campus, and we're hearing regularly from students and institutions about that. So that is something that I take very seriously as well.
You have a conversation with the school, what can be done. And I want to point out that we don't have any information that the suicides are linked to sexual violence in any way. Just to clarify, I mean, we don't know.
I understand. We're in continual discussions and dialogue with our institutions. I'm very much about making sure we maintain that level of communication, and we want to hear from the students as well as our institutions and support them in moving forward to improve well-being for all students on all our publicly assisted campuses.
As you point out, Minister, this is quite shocking to hear. More than 63% of university students have had an experience like this. Do you think a doubling of a grant to just $8 million goes far enough? Would you like to $6 million?
$6 million.
Do you think would you like to see your government do more to help this big problem, as you point out?
Well, as I said, this is an immediate response, something that we were working right up until early this morning, putting this together, because we know that this is a serious issue that affects all of us. And so we need to continue to find ways to work together, hear from students, and keep the communication with institutions and encourage them to meet the requirements that we're asking for.
Do you think this warrants greater action than what you're announcing today?
Well, again, this is an immediate response to an issue that has only just been reported back to us.
The task force, can you tell us a little bit more about the makeup? I know that there will be student representatives. Who else will be on those?
Well, we're requiring the institutions to create diversity on those task forces that is indicative of their own institutions. And we're very aware that institutions vary for a number of reasons, but we're asking that diversity to be included.
Well, what are they to do? Are they to investigate? Or are they just simply an intake for complaints? Are they to look at what the response was and whether it was adequate? What is the task force there to do?
Well, the more information we have, the better we can address the issue, and the more appropriate solutions can be. So the task forces will be tasked with addressing the issues and the report that they will now have from the survey, and look at ways that can be reported not only back to their Board of Governors, but I'm looking forward to hearing about that as well.
So they're only there to report back to the ministry instances of sexual violence on campus?
Well, I would ask, if you want more details on the task force as that evolves, that you get in touch with my ministry staff.
What the mandate for the task force? Like, is this body there to simply, collect information on what's happening, so that the ministry has kind of a
This is a very important issue, and I think it affects us all. And so we've taken immediate action to require each institution to have a task force to address this issue. Well, they will be reporting back on incidents. It's a way to inform the institutions of what's actually happening. If we don't have the data, and if they don't have the data and the information, then it's very difficult to act. So this is a way to provide that.
The task force, or
there will be. This is what we're asking for. There is a requirement that students be included. Yeah.
There needs to be more security on campuses across the province.
Repeat that
Do you
again?
think that there needs to be more security, like actual physical?
Well, that may depend on the institution. Some institutions may be well set for that. There's always room for improvement, and that's where the Women's Campus Safety Grant, the doubling of that grant, can be applied to that. So I think we should always be looking to improve, because one case of violence is one too many.
You mentioned the value
Is this the last question?
of taking immediate action and the value of data and so on.
Mm-hmm.
The survey from students was completed in early April
Yes.
last year.
Yeah.
Why did it take
This was I hear your question. Yeah, this was a very, very large survey. The responses were very high, and as I mentioned, 10 million units of data. And we need to protect the privacy of the participants, the student participants that have completed this survey. It's critical that we do that. And so because of the volume, it's taken longer than expected to provide that security for all students.
Minister, on mental health, there are parents at the University of Toronto campus of students who are complaining that, it takes sometimes 2 weeks for a student to get an appointment with a health and wellness counselor. Is that acceptable? Should that process be sped up? Because a lot can happen in 2 weeks.
Well, we take the issue of mental health very, very seriously, and I think we can always look to improve. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Too short of a time, or would you like it to be
Well, of
shorter,
course,
or is
what
it too
I
long?
wish it would be no time. I wish ultimately that everyone could get what they need immediately. So I think we can look towards improving
And what can the government
continually.
do to improve that, to make sure that there is no time as you wish?
Well, we continue to make changes that will be addressing the issues of students and listening to our students, listening to the institutions, and understanding the data. Thank you all.